The feminine is a creative, chaotic energy that crafts reality, though she has a deep logic and structure within her fabric. She moves chaotically, explores, experiments, see what happens when, but deep in her core, she's searching for something that is already present within her. She just can't see it yet. These are the beginnings of stepping into the feminine spiral of creation. It's an awareness that a deeper self-knowledge is needed, and so movement, usually internal at first, a restlessness, an ache or tension towards this search, is initiated to start discovering herself. This spiral moves closer and closer to its source point until it reunites with her whole self and oneness itself. The feminine spiral of creation is as follows: surrender, play, visible, response. It's a good idea to watch this video around step 1, surrender, in order to fully understand and get the most out of this video, which is a deep dive into step 2, which is play. In this video, we'll be exploring what encourages play, what is play, how can you play more, is it possible to play too much, and, as this is a channel dedicated to money, energetics, and business, how to manifest more income and ease in business through deepening into playing with your feminine energy. So, what encourages play? Essentially, you need to have a sense of safety, belonging, and knowing that you're absolutely on purpose through having a physical existence and expression in the world. In other words, you aren't in a frenetic or desperate need to justify your belonging. You just assume you belong, as simply having a consciousness here to experience life is enough of a reason for you. Without this, it will be impossible to play. So for the purpose of this first point, let's assume that you have achieved this internal state of belonging. You feel grounded, safe, and you sense that you're here for a reason. You're just happy being you. You surrender to the feminine and welcome her in. From this space, the lower energy centers, which are of substance, switch on and you'll want to move. Nothing else is possible when this happens. It's an absolute impulse to want to move in some way. And so, much like that quote from Abraham Lincoln, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. Most of your work here will be in finding your way to surrender. In fact, many people spend most of their time finding their way into surrender, and so barely even squeeze their way into the second phase here, which is play. It is possible to find your way into surrender through play, so apparently moving backwards in the cycle, not forwards. Only play is much harder to find when you're feeling unsafe and like you don't belong, but it's not impossible. In the interest of following the route of least resistance, it's better that you do all that you can to surrender into the feminine before you surrender into the play phase. What is play? So you're fully surrendered and ready to play. What does this play look like? It's impossible to say what specifically you'll be doing. It will depend on a vast array of things, from what you're interested in to what you're good at to how and where you like to channel your play. So for example, is play in work or outside work or both? Okay, according to your subconscious mind. And much of all of that is dependent on, yep, you guessed it, what makes you feel safe. The best way the Pleiadians feel that they can explain this to us so that we understand is to describe how it will feel for us. Play feels like a permission to be messy, to explore, to understand how the world works, to see what happens when you engage your energy with aspects of reality, and absolutely love to watch what results. You see it when a child splashes paint onto paper for the first time and they crash 2 toys together and the toys split apart, much to their joy and delight, or when they bring together stickers on sparkly canvas, or when they move their body on a trampoline or in sports. Much of the play state is actually centered around the physics of reality. It sounds strange maybe, but seeing and experiencing the manifestation of reality's response to the effect of our existence is a magical experience when you're in the right frame of mind. Play also looks like a mindlessness that feels liberating. It's a sense of openness to the world and a sense of being at one with what and how you're creating. Let's not forget that what you create is creating you, shifting your reality, your consciousness, skills, beliefs, and so much more. What's more, that which you create is you, as in there's no separation between you and the thing that you're creating in reality. You're all from the same source, composed of the same elements, atoms, protons, neutrons, quarks, etc. And in reality, you're also a part of the same minerals and composites. carbon, hydrogen, etc. So, for example, if you're writing a piece of literature, your mind is a part of the one mind, and the elements of the keyboard that you're typing onto are composed of the exact same building blocks that your body is formed with, which is also born of the one mind. This is a laborious way of spelling this out for you to see, but ultimately, play is a removal of separation between you and the perceived other, or if you haven't completely merged with perceived other, then you're at least moving that way through play. Play is your way back to goddess through oneness, surrender, and expressive exploration. It isn't something that you can manufacture. It's also not something that's easy to describe. Rather, it's an experience of surrender to the world around you and a blurring of the line between you and other in an unconsciously permitted way. How can you play more? Well, belong more. There's no other way to it. If you truly feel like you belong, if you feel that you have a place on earth just through the sheer fact that you are drawing breath, then you will naturally desire to play more. There's nothing more to it. If you want to play more, but you can't quite seem to let go into it, move back in the cycle of feminine creation to the surrender phase and explore more in this phase until it just happens. Is it possible to play too much? No, but it is possible to want to stay locked in a cycle of play and not move on to the next phase of the cycle, which is visibility. Play is a natural segue into visibility, step 3 of the feminine spiral of creation. And so, if your play is constantly and continuously self-focused, self-rewarding, and self-gratifying, then you are stopping the natural cycle of the feminine moving forward, and in fact, are just as much jolted in embodying your feminine, or a better way of saying this would be spiraling closer into the core of your feminine nature, as those who are stuck in the surrender phase, so phase 1. Make no mistake, play without the natural desire to segue into visibility is embodied resistance to the feminine spiral of creation. How does play manifest in business? In some ways, the online marketing world is set up to support the feminine spiral of creation because it encourages, no, in fact, it demands visibility. And so, in some respects, it's designed to very naturally send the person with no resistance to their own nature spiraling into the center of their own feminine expression. However, and this is a very big however, it sends those who are not surrendered into the feminine, feel like they don't belong and aren't safe enough to play, and therefore even find visibility, into absolute nervous system overload. As the patriarchy immensely gaslights the feminine and demands production at all costs, this person will often ignore all warning systems of their nervous system in order to feel safe and belong, even though this is an absolute illusion, as belonging can't be bestowed on us from the patriarchy, which wouldn't even provide it, even if it could, as it thrives on us being unbelonging. Anyway, I digress. Another massive caveat is that play can't be forced out of an individual and have it be genuine play. Surrender must come first, or in the very least, the willingness to play and find surrender through play. It's a process rooted in free will. And so the online marketing world often assumes and takes for granted that there's going to be visibility in business, which in some respects is the exact opposite of what brings the feminine into her blossoming. The feminine thrives and grows in appreciation, and appreciation grows out of the fertile earth of kind, loving attention, tending to yourself, seeing yourself, loving yourself, to the extent that you feel like you belong in the root of who you are, aka step 1. As such, if you're attempting visibility, the third step in the feminine cycle of creation, without first opening into surrender of the feminine and then into the second step, play, then a few things are going to happen. Firstly, you'll soon get exhausted, or at least unfulfilled with the process, as your natural energy streams from source aren't being harnessed. And secondly, your creations from this place will lack authenticity and that captivating source point attraction. And so you'll feel like you're expending a lot of energy for almost no visibility or acknowledgement, because the offering hasn't touched the audience to which it was offered, because it's not flowing from source point. This is a nightmare for the feminine expressive, and they will often retreat from this place, aka hiding. So play and social media and online business building has to come from that place of having found true belonging in yourself, as from belonging, play naturally emerges and visibility becomes more of a yearning unless it's suppressed due to unconscious fears getting in the way. Firmly in this cycle, as you create and build your business, you can be assured and comfortable in the polarization of your audience because you're not trying to polarize, you just are a polarizing person, because that's what happens in a world where everyone is being completely who they are. As a final point, social media encourages people to skip steps in the feminine cycle of creation. And guess what? That pushes you into the masculine cycle of creation, which is a story for another day. But rest assured that jolting yourself out of the feminine cycle of creation into the masculine cycle of creation will only set you back to finding surrender within the feminine cycle through belonging again. And this setback will spiritually and energetically hurt. So you'll want to do all that you can to be slow, intentional, or in the very least conscious with how you're moving on the feminine spiral. Play is an elusive quality to describe in the context of feminine embodiment. It's easier to explain step 1, surrender, because we know what it means to let go. Stop pushing is almost singular in its nature, even if describing it is limited compared to actually experiencing it. And to be visible, which is step 3, is a thing that can be visualized. You basically present yourself to another set of eyes. But to play, step 2 here is broad. It conjures up visions of children, expression, dance, paint, silliness, teasing. On the other hand, maybe you see sexual intimacies, joyous travel, or specific kinds of interactions that have a kind of lightness to them, or an unencumbered, expressive weightlessness. So ultimately, the best way to describe the erupting energy of play is by saying it's the sense of being you spontaneously without fear of judgment, shame, ridicule, or expecting anything as a result of actioning the self. Play is therefore a function of presence because fear of the past has been surrendered and consequences or expectations for the future have been released too. So you might say that the single best way to get into play is to surrender to the truth of your belonging, and the single best way to stay in play is to be in presence as you feel that you belong. What practices bring us into play? The Pleiadians have no step-by-step practices as such for this state of play, other than breathing into the root for a sense of belonging and being with the elements as outlined in the previous video, and a mindfulness that surrender to the past, lays down expectations for the future, and allows you to come into presence with the now. It could be explained in a more complicated way, but why need to? You simply need to understand how it works, and then the rest is finding your way to the space of direct experience through leaning into what's required. Otherwise, it's all theory, no expression, interaction, and, well, play. Thank you so much for joining me in this week's video all about the feminine art of play. If you feel called to go deeper into this work, then I invite you to hop onto a 20-minute Business Ascension call with me where we're going to dive into your Akashic Records and source one golden nugget for what's needed for you to 10x your business income. We'll then understand what resources are going to help you to lean into this 10x business income self. So that could be podcasts or courses or experiences or influencers, anything that's needed to help you embody that wisdom. And then we'll do a final beautiful call-in of all of your guides and non-physical team so that you actually feel supported in embodying this next phase of being a CEO, being the owner of your business. So if that sounds like it could be immensely helpful for you, then I invite you to click on the link in the banner or the link in the description. I only have a few of these free calls available per week, so hopefully I will see you on there, and they really are a sustainable way for me to serve the audience, the people in my business and those who are interested in my work and want to go deeper with it. So if that feels like it speaks to you, please do book in, and hopefully I will see you there. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.